Welcome to Talk Treatises.
Great to be here.
Today, we are doing something that might feel a little counterintuitive. We're taking a text that most people, they associate it with high school English class.
Or maybe a dusty shelf in a library.
Right. Or maybe that movie with Brad Pitt where he jumps like 50 feet in the air to stab a guy.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking that text and we're going to strip away the poetry, well, not all of it, and treat it for what it actually is.
Which is fundamentally the Western world's first and perhaps most enduring manual on warfare, military strategy, and statecraft.
Exactly. We are talking about the Iliad by Homer. But we aren't just retelling the story of the Trojan War.
No.
We aren't here to talk about which goddess is the fairest or, the romance of Paris and Helen. We are doing a deep dive into the specific translation by Alexander Pope, which frames this epic in a very martial, very structured way.
Right.
We're looking at this as a case study in leadership failure, coalition management, and the terrifying mechanics of ancient combat.
It is a study of conflict. And I don't just mean the physical conflict of spears and shields, though the text is incredibly graphic about that.
Oh, it is.
I mean the conflict of command, the friction between political authority and military capability.
The breakdown of morale.
The breakdown of morale, the logistics of a siege. I mean, if you were a Greek statesman in 400 BC, or a Roman general, or even a British officer in the 19th century, this was the book you read to understand how men behave under the supreme pressure of war.
So the mission for this deep dive is to look at the decisions. We want to analyze Agamemnon's struggle to hold a fracturing coalition together.
It's a huge theme.
Yeah, and we want to dissect the psychology of panic, specifically that moment in book 2 where the army just routs.
Total chaos.
We want to look at tactical formations, like where you put your cowards in the battle line. And we want to understand the role of fate and chance, what we might call the fog of war, and how leaders try and often fail to navigate it.
It's the ultimate lesson in the limits of control. You have kings who think they can control the army, heroes who think they can control the battle, and gods who think they can control the outcome.
And usually, all of them are surprised.
All of them.
Before we get into the blood and dust, though, we have to set the context. We have to talk about the book itself. Because one of the sources we're looking at, the introduction by Theodore Alois Buckley, brings up something called the Homeric question. Now, to a listener who just wants strategy, that sounds like dry academic theory. But you argue that it actually changes how we read the strategy.
It absolutely does. The Homeric question is essentially the debate over authorship. Was there a single blind poet named Homer who sat down and composed this massive, unified masterpiece?
Right.
Or is the text something else entirely? Buckley discusses what's known as the Wolffian theory.
Wolffian theory, let's unpack that.
It's named after F.A. Wolf, and the theory suggests that the Iliad wasn't written by one man. Instead, it argues that for centuries there were these ballads or rhapsodies just floating around Greece. Like folk songs.
Exactly. Folk songs about the war. A song about the wall, a song about the ships, a song about the anger of Achilles.
And so the theory is what? That these were all stitched together later.
That's the idea, that they were stitched together much later, likely in Athens, under the direction of Pisistratus or Solon.
So it's like a greatest hits compilation rather than a concept album recorded in one session.
That is a perfect analogy, and here's why that matters for strategy and statecraft. If Pisistratus, who was a tyrant of Athens, a state builder, if he compiled this text, he didn't do it just for art.
He did it for a political purpose.
He had to have. The argument is that the text was unified to teach a social position. It was designed to show the fractious, independent Greek city-states the absolute necessity of national unity.
So the core strategic lesson of the book, don't fight amongst yourselves or you will die, might have been the specific reason the book was engineered in the first place.
It's very likely. I mean, you can see it as an early form of information warfare or cultural propaganda.
You create a foundational mythos that says, look at what happened to our ancestors when Agamemnon and Achilles fought each other. They almost lost everything. It's a tool for cohesion.
However, our sources, particularly Pope and Buckley, they sort of push back on this idea of it being a messy patchwork, don't they?
They do. They argue for the internal evidence of unity. When you read the text, the plot is incredibly tight.
It is.
The character of Achilles is psychologically consistent from his first sulk in Book 1 to his moment of grace in Book 24. I mean, If you had a dozen different authors stitching things together, you just wouldn't get that singular driving vision.
Pope calls it a vast invention.
He does?
And Pope's preface is fascinating on this concept of invention. He seems to value that above everything else.
Pope contrasts Homer with Virgil. He says Virgil, who wrote the Aeneid, has judgment. He's cool, calculated, precise.
Okay.
But Homer has fire. Pope calls the Iliad a wild paradise.
A wild paradise. That's a very evocative phrase for a war story.
It is, and it means it's teeming with life and variables. It covers every aspect of human nature in conflict. Cruelty, mercy, greed, honor, panic, exhaustion.
All of it.
All of it. Pope argues that in Homer, everything moves. Everything lives. It's not a static history. It's a dynamic simulation of war. It captures the chaos, and for a strategist, that chaos is what makes it a useful text. War isn't clean lines on a map. It's a wild paradise of bad decisions and sudden violence.
Okay, so let's step into that simulation. Let's go to book 1. We need to set the strategic scene.
The scene is grim. The Greeks are in the 9th year of the siege. We often gloss over that, but think about the logistics.
9 years.
9 years camping on a hostile beach.
That's an eternity.
It is a strategic stalemate. They can't crack the main objective, which is the city of Troy. So what have they been doing? They've been raiding neighboring towns. They are running a predation economy, looting for food, for supplies, for treasure, just to keep the army fed and paid. They are stuck.
And morale must be in the absolute gutter.
It is fraying. And then a catalyst hits, a plague.
Apollo's arrows.
The text says Apollo shoots arrows into the camp, killing the dogs and mules first, then the men. Strategically, or historically, we can read this as a disease outbreak.
Right. Typhus or something.
Typhus or dysentery in a crowded, unsanitary siege camp. But the cause of this plague is a failure of leadership.
This is the quarrel. Agamemnon versus Achilles.
It is. Agamemnon, the king of men, has taken a prize, Chryseis, the daughter of a priest of Apollo. The priest comes to ransom her. Agamemnon refuses rudely. So Apollo sends the plague.
So the army is dying because the CEO refuses to admit he made a mistake.
Precisely. And this leads to the confrontation. Achilles, the top performer, the force multiplier, calls an assembly and essentially says, "We are dying. We need to solve this."
And a prophet reveals that Agamemnon is the problem.
He is. And Agamemnon does not take this well.
Yeah.
This is a leadership crisis. It is the archetypal conflict between political authority and military capability. Agamemnon holds the scepter, he has the title. But Achilles holds the sword, he has the talent.
And Agamemnon feels his authority is threatened by Achilles' competence.
Absolutely. He agrees to give the girl back to stop the plague, but he demands compensation.
He demands Briseis, a woman who was awarded to Achilles as a war prize.
Think about the coalition management aspect here. Agamemnon says, insatiate king, fond of the power, but fonder of the prize.
He's projecting.
He is projecting his own insecurity. He views the distribution of spoils as a zero-sum game. If he loses a tangible asset, the girl, he feels his status is diminished unless he takes an asset from someone else.
And he chooses to take from his most dangerous, most essential subordinate.
It is a catastrophic error in personnel management. He humiliates the one man he cannot afford to lose. And Achilles' reaction is what we might call the strike.
He withdraws.
He doesn't defect. He doesn't go fight for the Trojans.
No, he just sits.
He engages in a strategic withdrawal of labor. He says, "My fleet shall waft me to Thessalia's shore." He essentially says, "I am taking my ball and going home. Let's see how you fight this war without me."
And he knows exactly what will happen, doesn't he?
Oh, he knows the Greeks will bleed. He wants them to bleed. He wants Agamemnon to realize the cost of his arrogance. It's a power play. You think you are the king? Fine. Be the king without my spear.
So Book I ends with the army fractured. The best fighter is sitting by his ship sulking. The king is angry and insecure. The plague has ravaged the ranks. And you would think Agamemnon would try to consolidate, but he does something that to a modern reader seems insane. He tries the false retreat.
This is one of the most fascinating case studies in failed psychological operations in all of literature.
So what happens?
Agamemnon receives a dream from Jove. Now the dream is a lie. Jove is setting him up. The dream tells him, attack now, you will take the city.
So he has false intelligence.
He has false intel from a trusted source, the gods. But instead of just ordering the attack, Agamemnon decides he needs to test the troops. He comes up with this convoluted stratagem. He tells the other kings, I'm going to call an assembly and tell the men we are giving up and going home. I want you, the other kings, to argue against me. but I want to see if the men have the spirit to fight.
It's a loyalty test. He wants them to shout, "No, Agamemnon, we will die for you. Lead us to the walls."
He is fishing for validation. He wants to prove that his authority is still intact despite the fight with Achilles, but he completely misreads the colleges of the weary.
I mean, these guys have been away from home for 9 years.
Exactly. They're tired, they're sick, they're terrified of Hector. So Agamemnon stands up, gives this speech, which is actually very convincing, about how the war is hopeless and they should leave. And what happens?
They don't argue, they don't protest, they cheer.
It is an immediate, chaotic rout. The text says the army actually runs, they scream with joy, they stampede toward the ships.
They're grabbing their gear.
They start hauling the timber props away, clearing the launch channels. I mean, they are ready to sail in 10 minutes.
Agamemnon stands there, jaw on the floor, watching his entire war effort evaporate because he tried to play a mind game.
It's a total failure of command. He opened a door he didn't want them to walk through, and they sprinted through it, and now the coalition is dissolving.
This is where Ulysses Odysseus steps in.
The crisis manager. Ulysses sees the disaster. He doesn't wait for orders. He realizes Agamemnon is just paralyzed. So Ulysses grabs the scepter.
That's a crucial detail. He takes the symbol of authority.
He takes the physical symbol of the king's power and he weighs into the mob. And his methods are instructive. To the kings and leaders, he uses rhetoric. He says, "This is unworthy of you. You misunderstood the king."
Right, he gives them an out.
He gives them a face-saving way to stop.
But to the common soldiers,
To the camp, he uses violence. He beats them with the staff. He shouts, "Be still, thou slave, and to thy betters yield." He reimposes hierarchy through sheer force and intimidation. He physically stops the panic.
and this leads to the incident with Thersites. This is a scene that makes modern audiences, uncomfortable, but from a strategic perspective, it's vital.
It is. Thersites is described as the ugliest man in the army. He's hunchbacked, lame, balding. He's a seditious soldier, and he speaks up in the assembly.
And what does he say?
He says, "Agamemnon, you have plenty of gold and women. Why are we dying for you? Achilles was right. Let's go home."
The thing is, he's right.
He is absolutely telling the truth. He is repeating the exact arguments Achilles made in Book 1. But Achilles is a king and a hero. Thersites is a commoner.
And that's the difference.
In the context of a military hierarchy under stress, truth is irrelevant if it undermines discipline.
So Ulysses doesn't debate him.
No. Ulysses beats him senseless. He strikes him across the back with the scepter until a bloody welt rises and Thersites sits down, crying.
And the army.
The army laughs, and that laughter is the sound of order being restored. It's brutal, but Ulysses uses Thersites as a scapegoat to vent the army's tension and reestablish the line between the commanders and the commanded.
The lesson there is pretty clear.
It is. In a crisis, you cannot tolerate the Thersites element. Dissent that was acceptable in the council is mutiny in the camp.
So Ulysses manages to wrestle the army back into formation. They don't leave. They prepare for battle. And now we get to the catalog of forces.
Which is usually the part where readers skip ahead.
Yeah, pages and pages of names.
It's just pages and pages of names and geography. The Boeotians sent 50 ships, and so on.
But for us, this is the muster roll.
It is the logistics document. It establishes the scale of the operation over 1,000 ships, likely around 100,000 men, though, numbers in ancient texts are always suspect.
Of course.
But more importantly, it emphasizes the coalition nature of the force.
These aren't Agamemnon's soldiers. They are contingents led by their own warlords.
Exactly. Agamemnon is a king of kings, a chairman of the board, not a dictator. He has to herd these cats. The catalog shows us the political complexity of the army he is trying to wield.
So let's move to the battlefield itself. We see some specific tactical doctrines emerging. Nestor, the old sage from Pylos, gives some very specific advice in Book 4.
Nestor is the military theorist. He's too old to fight effectively, so his value is institutional memory. He organizes the phalanxes, and he does something brilliant with his formation.
He structures the line by morale.
Right. He puts the horse and chariots in the front, the shock troops. He puts the foot soldiers, the most reliable infantry, in the rear to act as a backstop. And in the middle,
The suspected troops.
the cowards, the guys who looked like they wanted to run during the false retreat, he puts them in the center.
Why?
As the text says, enclosed by both, nor left the power to fly. They are physically trapped. If they try to run back, they hit their own veterans. If they stay still, the chariots in front engage the enemy.
They're forced to fight.
They're forced to fight for their lives because they have no exit.
That is a cynical, ruthless, and highly effective way to weaponize unreliable manpower.
It creates a push dynamic. The rear ranks shove the middle ranks into the combat zone. It's a mechanism to convert fear into forward momentum.
Nestor also gives chariot doctrine.
Yeah, he notices that the younger men are trying to be heroes. They drive out ahead of the line to duel, or they get scared and lag behind.
Right.
And Nestor tells them, do not break ranks to fight singly, but do not lag behind.
He wants a firm embodied train.
He wants a tank column. He understands that the chariot's power is in mass and impact, not individual dueling. You break the line, you create gaps for the enemy infantry to swarm the vehicle. He's trying to enforce professional discipline over the heroic impulse.
Despite these tactics, the battle goes badly. Achilles is gone, and the Trojans, led by Hector, are aggressive. The Greeks are pushed back. This leads to a major strategic shift in Book 7, the building of the wall.
This is a pivot point. For 9 years, the Greeks didn't need a wall around their camp because they owned the field. Now they are digging a trench and building a rampart with gates and towers.
It's a defensive posture.
Yeah. It is an admission that the initiative has been lost. Strategically, it's necessary to protect the ships. If the ships burn, they die. But there is a fascinating theological objection here.
Oh, this is Neptune.
Yeah, Neptune, the god of the sea and earthquake, complains to Jove about the wall.
He says it was built no victim slain.
It wasn't sanctioned by the proper rituals, but metaphorically, you could read that as a wall built out of fear without the sanction of offensive capability is a trap.
How so?
A wall is a force multiplier for a defender, but it also limits mobility.
It pins them against the sea.
Exactly. The Greeks are now fighting with their backs to the ocean. If the wall is breached, there is no maneuvering room. It becomes a kill box.
And Hector, the Trojan commander, is determined to breach it. We need to talk about Hector. We often see him as the noble hero, the family man. But is he a good general?
This is a major debate in the text. Hector is the inspirational leader. He is brave. He is frontline. He leads by example. But he has a foil, Polydamus.
Polydamus is his brother, born on the same night, but he is the strategic advisor.
Exactly. Polydamus represents prudence and strategy. Hector represents valor and momentum. They clash repeatedly. The most significant moment is the eagle omen in Book 12.
Okay, set the scene. The Trojans are about to storm the Greek wall.
They are at the trench. Suddenly, an eagle flies over the Trojan army, carrying a bleeding serpent in its talons.
Right.
The serpent bites the eagle, and the eagle drops it right in the middle of the troops and flies away screaming.
That seems fairly ominous.
Polydamus interprets it immediately. He says, essentially, this is a warning. We might breach the wall, the eagle catching the snake, but we won't be able to hold it or bring the prize home. The snake will bite us. We should halt.
He is arguing against overextension.
He is identifying the culminating point of victory. He's saying, we are stretching our supply lines and our luck too far. We are leaving the safety of the city too far behind.
And Hector's response is famous.
Hector scorns him. He says, the one best omen is to fight for one's country.
It's a line that would look great on a recruiting poster.
It is patriotic virtue, but it is strategic suicide. Hector ignores the intelligence, the omen, because he is drunk on momentum.
He orders the attack.
He does. They breach the wall, they burn the ships. But by doing so, he ensures that the Greeks become desperate. As Sun Tzu would say, he places the enemy on death ground.
When the Greeks have nowhere to run, they fight like demons.
Exactly. And crucially, by pushing this far, Hector puts his army in a position where they cannot easily retreat when the tide turns.
And the tide does turn. But before it does, we have to talk about the variables. We've mentioned the gods. In a modern analysis, we strip away the theology, but we have to keep the function.
In the Iliad, the gods function as strategic variables, or friction. They represent the things a commander cannot control. Weather, mechanical failure, sudden panic, luck.
There's the image of the golden scales.
Book 8 and Book 22, Jove holds up a golden scale. He puts the fate of the Greeks in one side and the Trojans in the other. The Greek side sinks.
And that determines the battle.
It represents the physics of momentum. There are moments in battle where the energy shifts. You can't explain it by numbers alone. The morale collapses. The luck runs out. When the scale sinks, the directive is to retreat.
We see Diomed, who is basically a Terminator in the early books, face this. He wants to charge, but Jove throws thunderbolts in front of his horses.
And Nestor, the wise old man, grabs his reins and turns him around. He says, "Trust not too much your unavailing might. 'Tis not with Troy, but with the gods ye fight."
Translation: the momentum is against us.
Yes. If we fight now, we lose. We have to preserve the force and wait for the scales to tip back.
There's also the concept of divine intervention as simple mechanical failure. There's a moment where Teucer, the Greek archer, has a clean shot at Hector. He draws the bow. He's about to end the war.
And the bowstring snaps.
The text as Apollo cut the string.
But functionally, his equipment failed. In the heat of battle, chance intervened. To the ancient mind, there is no such thing as random chance. It is the will of a god. But for a strategist, it teaches you that you cannot rely on any single point of failure. Even your best sniper can have a weapon malfunction.
Let's look at a moment where the humans try to take control of the darkness. Book X, the Dolonia, the Night Raid.
This is a fascinating interlude. It's almost a different genre. It's a spy thriller.
Right.
The Greeks are desperate. They need intel, so they send Ulysses and Diomed on a black ops mission.
And the Trojans, feeling confident, send a spy of their own, Dolan.
The contrast between the two missions is a lesson in professionalism. Dolan is a volunteer, but he's motivated by greed. He asks Hector for a specific reward. I want Achilles' horses and his chariot when we win.
He's focused on the prize, not the mission.
Not at all. And he's not a warrior. He wears a wolf skin, but he's soft.
And Ulysses and Diomed.
They're professionals. They're silent. They see Dolan coming. They use a tactic. They play dead among the corpses to let him pass. Then they cut off his retreat.
The interrogation scene is brutal.
Dolan collapses. He begs for his life. Take me alive. I'm rich. My father will pay you. He spills everything. He gives up the passwords, the layout of the camp, the location of the allies.
He betrays his entire army in 5 seconds.
He does. He thinks he's buying his survival.
But he misunderstands the nature of the men he's dealing with.
He does. Diomed listens to the intel and then says, essentially, if we let you go, you'll just come back to spy again or fight us later. It's a cold, utilitarian calculus. You are a risk I can eliminate.
And he decapitates him.
The falchion lopped his head, speaking the last sad words. It's ruthless. Then they use his intel to infiltrate the Thracian camp, slaughter King Rhesus in his sleep, and steal his horses. It's a massive asymmetric win. It boosts morale when the Greeks needed it most.
So the raid helps, but it doesn't solve the problem. The Trojans are still winning. The wall is breached, the ships are burning, the golden scales are down for the Greeks. They need a game changer. They need the force multiplier back.
But Achilles is stubborn. He won't return. However, he offers a compromise. He sends Patroclus.
This is the Patroclus stratagem in Book 16.
It was a deception operation. Achilles gives Patroclus his armor, his famous god-forged armor. He tells him to lead the Myrmidons into battle.
The goal is psychological warfare.
Yes. He knows that if the Trojans see that armor, they will think Achilles has returned. The mere sight of it will cause panic.
And it works.
It works perfectly. The Trojans see the armor, they scream, they break formation. Patroclus drives them away from the ships. He puts out the fire.
But then the plan goes wrong.
Mission creep. This is the critical lesson. Achilles gave Patroclus a very specific limit of advance, he said. Drive them from the ships, but do not pursue them to Troy.
Why was Achilles so specific about that?
2 reasons. 1, strategic. If you push too far without support, you get cut off. 2, ego. Achilles says, lest thou diminish my glory. He wants to be the one to take the city.
But Patroclus gets what the text calls battle fury.
He gets addicted to the success. He's killing Trojans. He's a hero. He feels invincible. He forgets the order.
He pursues them.
He chases the route all the way to the walls of Troy. He tries to scale the battlements.
And that is where he meets his limit.
Apollo physically intervenes. He strikes Patroclus between the shoulders. The helmet falls off. The deception is revealed. It's not Achilles. It's just Patroclus.
Right.
And then Hector moves in for the kill.
The death of Patroclus is the turning point of the entire war.
It shatters the strategic stalemate. It renders the quarrel with Agamemnon irrelevant. Achilles hears the news and he breaks. He doesn't care about Briseis. He doesn't care about the insult. He doesn't care about his own life.
The prophecy.
The prophecy says if he kills Hector, he will die young. He accepts that.
This is the return of Achilles, Book 9 aches. And you've described this as a shift in the physics of the battlefield.
Up until now, the war has been soldiers fighting soldiers, heroes fighting heroes. When Achilles returns, it becomes total war.
There is a terrifying scene where he appears at the trench. before he even has new armor.
He just stands there, he's unarmed, and he shouts. Athena amplifies his voice, and the text says the Trojans are so terrified by the sound that 12 of their best men fall on their own spears and die.
Just from the sound.
Just from the sonic boom of his rage.
When he actually enters the fight, he stops taking prisoners.
There is a crucial scene with Lycaon. Lycaon is a son of Priam. Achilles had captured him before and sold him into slavery. Lycaon escaped and made it back. Now, Achilles catches him again.
Lycaon begs. He grabs Achilles' knees. He appeals to the code of war. I am a suppliant. I have value.
And Achilles gives this chilling speech. He says, "Die, friend, you too. Patroclus is dead, who was a far better man than you."
Wow.
He essentially says, the world has changed. Mercy died with Patroclus. And he kills him. He throws him in the river.
He kills so many men, the river Xanthus gets clogged with corpses and rises up to fight him.
It is nature itself revolting against the scale of the slaughter.
And finally, we have the Ghoul with Hector, Book 22.
The climax.
We expect a grand, equal fight.
But the Iliad is honest. It's not a fair fight. Hector is great, but Achilles is death. Hector sees him coming, and his nerve breaks.
Well, he runs.
He runs around the walls of his own city 3 times. His parents are watching from the tower, screaming. It is a deeply human moment. Even the bravest man breaks when faced with the inevitable.
But he stops. He stands.
Because Athena tricks him. She disguises herself as his brother Deiphobus. She says, "I'll stand with you, brother." Hector thinks he has an ally. He turns to fight. He throws his spear. It bounces off Achilles' shield. He turns to ask his brother for another spear.
And no one is there.
And he knows. Deiphobus is far away, and death is here. He draws his sword and charges, knowing he is dead. Achilles puts the spear through his neck.
And then the desecration.
Achilles ties the body to his chariot and drags it through the dust. He denies Hector the funeral rites. In the ancient world, this is a spiritual war crime. It's an attempt to kill the soul as well as the body.
But the poem doesn't end on this note of rage. And this is crucial for the statecraft aspect. It ends with Book 24.
The post-conflict settlement. You cannot end a war on pure vengeance. There must be a return to order.
Priam, the king of Troy, does the unthinkable. He crosses the enemy lines at night, alone.
It is the bravest act in the entire poem. An old man walking into the camp of the monster who butchered his sons.
He enters Achilles' tent.
He kneels. He kisses the hands, the terrible manslaughtering hands that killed Hector.
And he asks for the body. He asks Achilles to remember his own father, Peleus.
And Achilles breaks. The rage finally snaps. They weep together. Achilles weeps for his father and for Patroclus. Priam weeps for Hector. It is a moment of shared humanity. They recognize they are both victims of the war.
And the war pauses.
Achilles grants a truce. 11 days for the funeral. He ensures Priam gets home safely. The poem ends with the funeral of Hector. Such honors Ilion to her hero paid, and peaceful slept the mighty Hector's shade.
It ends with ritual.
It ends with the restoration of civilization. The killing stops, just for a moment, to honor the dead. The lesson is that you can win the war with force, but you can only end the cycle of violence with a return to shared humanity.
It is a profound ending. So we've unpacked the text. We've seen the failure of Agamemnon, the mechanics of the phalanx, the danger of overextension, and the necessity of empathy. Now, let's move to our thought experiments.
These are scenarios where we take these Homeric concepts and apply them to modern situations to see if the strategy holds up. As always, these are for educational and entertainment purposes only.
In Scenario 1, the Achilles strike in modern geopolitics.
Let's imagine a modern military alliance. Something like a NATO coalition or a UN task force. One member state, let's call them Myrmidon, possesses a unique asymmetrical capability. Maybe it's a Tier 1 cyber warfare division that is the only unit capable of cracking the enemy's encryption. Or perhaps it's a hyper-specialized special forces group. They are the Achilles unit.
And the coalition leader, our modern Agamemnon, insults them.
Perhaps the coalition commander publicly reprimands the Myrmidon general for a minor infraction. Or, more likely, he cuts their funding or takes political credit for their success while sidelining them.
He wounds their national honor.
Exactly. So following the text, the Myrmidon unit doesn't switch sides. They just stop.
They go offline.
They go offline. Server maintenance. Operational pause. They withdraw their asset.
And immediately, the enemy, let's call them the Trojans, launches a massive digital offensive.
Without the Myrmidon cyber shield, the coalition's power grids start failing, comm networks go down, the wall is breached. Agamemnon tries to plug the gap with conventional forces, the Ajaxes and Diomeds, but they can't fight the code. They are overwhelmed.
Does Agamemnon try a Patroclus deception?
He might. He might dress up a standard IT security team in the digital guise of the Myrmidon unit.
Right.
Fake the signatures. Make the enemy think the Achilles unit is back to scare them off.
But if the enemy calls the bluff?
The proxy force is destroyed. And here's the danger. If the Myrmidon unit watches their cousins or allies get wiped out because of Agamemnon's incompetence.
They come back.
They come back, but they don't come back to restore the coalition's peace plan. They come back for vengeance.
Oh, wow.
They unleash malware so destructive it doesn't just stop the enemy, it destroys the civilian infrastructure of the entire region. They commit digital war crimes. They clog the river with corpses.
And the post-war peace is impossible because the Achilles unit has destroyed the possibility of reconciliation.
Exactly. Agamemnon's failure to manage the ego of his specialist force leads to a victory that is indistinguishable from a catastrophe.
Scenario 2. The false retreat stress test in the corporate world.
This is the Book 2 disaster applied to business. A CEO is under pressure. The stock is stagnant. He suspects leaks in his executive team. He thinks there is a Thersites in the C-suite bad-mouthing the vision.
So he decides to test their loyalty.
He calls an all-hands meeting. He gets up on the podium and pulls in Agamemnon. He says, "The market is turning against us. We are looking at insolvency. I don't want to trap anyone here on a sinking ship. I'm offering a generous severance package to anyone who wants to leave today. The doors are open. Go."
Now, in his head, he expects them to stand up and say, "No, we believe in the mission. We will take pay cuts to save the company."
He wants validation, but he misreads the room. These employees are burned out. They've been working 80-hour weeks for 9 years. They are tired. So when the CEO offers them a lifeboat,
they take it.
It's a stampede. They rush to the ships. They sign the papers. They download their contacts. The stock price tanks instantly because the market sees the internal panic.
The CEO just accidentally liquidated his own company because he wanted a hug.
Unless he has a Ulysses, a COO who realizes what is happening, locks the conference room doors, grabs the microphone, and physically threatens the executives back into their seats. "You are not leaving. This was a test and you all failed, but nobody is walking out that door."
But the damage is done.
You can't unring that bell. The authority is shattered. The leader looks manipulative and weak. The Thersites critics are validated. It's a leadership death spiral.
It really highlights the danger of playing 4D chess with human psychology when people are just trying to survive.
Never provide an exit unless you actually want people to leave. That is the lesson of Book 2.
So what does this all mean? If we step back and look at the Iliad not as a poem, but as a treatise.
It means that warfare and statecraft is about order. The Wolffian idea we started with holds up. This text serves as a warning against discord.
The anger of Achilles is the engine of the plot, but it's an engine of destruction.
It teaches that a coalition is a fragile thing. It requires constant maintenance. You have to manage the egos of the strong, Achilles, the authority of the leader, Agamemnon, and the morale of the masses. If you let any of those slip, you get the rout. You get the slaughter.
And it teaches that once the dogs of war are loosed, they're very hard to kennel again.
You can start a war with a speech, but you can only end it with a funeral.
We'll leave you with this final provocative thought for the listener.
Throughout the poem, we see the golden scales of Jove. The outcome of the battle is decided by factors. Fate, luck, gods entirely outside the general's control.
The scale tips, and you lose.
So is the true skill of the strategist merely the ability to recognize when the scale is sinking and retreat? Is the genius in the withdrawal, in the prudence of Polydamus?
Or is the true hero the madman? Is it Hector, who fights even when he knows the scale is tipped? Who sees the omens, hears the warnings, and says, "I will fight anyway"?
Is it better to be the prudent Polydamus, who survives? Or the doomed Hector, who dies for a lost cause but is remembered for 3,000 years?
That is the question. Thank you for joining Talk Treatises.